Welcome to Ofofo Studio.
Thanks for having me, Mohan.
Yeah, we met for the first time in 2013 with my co-founder Angad in Thai. You were part of Red Bus. You were helping Red Bus as a mentor,
Yes,
and that's when we used to, come to you for advice and everything. It's been 10 years now.
Yeah, it's been more than that actually. But clearly at least 10 years.
Yeah, a lot of people know about your recent adventures, but how did you start your career? What was your first role? Wipro was there and all that was there, but what was your first role like? What was your educational background? How did you start the career?
Right. So I was born and brought up in Kolkata. It was called Calcutta back then. And so I went to school there. I did my engineering, and then I joined Wipro. And my first IT career started with Wipro. And as part of that, I was a salesperson traveling across Bengal, Calcutta. I was covering Madhya Pradesh, southeastern Madhya Pradesh, what is now Chhattisgarh. Did Bihar, Northeast, all of that. All kinds of accounts, all kinds of customers. This was in 1987. So you can imagine what it was to sell computers those days. These were PCs, these were AutoCAD machines, these were networking equipment, and there was mini computers, all of those things. So absolutely fascinating learning experience, traveling into places that had not quite heard of what a computer was. Did all of those things. That was very, very nice. Then I came to Bangalore, got my MBA, and then I rejoined Wipro. I was running the operations in the Middle East and Africa, then partly in the Southeast Asia. So we were essentially selling Wipro designed, manufactured, branded products in the Middle East, Africa, and then some OEM work with design in the Far East. And Wipro had a fantastic R&D team. So we designed some very, very high-end, leading-edge tech products. One of which was a product that was called a terminal server. This was basically a 16-port device that allowed you to remotely log in from anywhere, and you could have been on any network. And those days there was TCP/IP, there was Novell NetWare, which had its own proprietary protocol, and then there was DECnet, which was the network that Digital Equipment Corporation used to have. So these were the three protocols. It was a tri-protocol automatic switch. You could send a message, you could print a file on any printer located on any node on any network and do it remotely. So that was a wonderful product. That was, again, co-designed, co-developed, manufactured by Wipro, and was in partnership with a LA-based startup. So I'm talking now about 1991. So I was, I led that team on that project, on the business side, and making sure the project was running well, etc. So did that. Thereafter, I moved to the US again through Wipro, set up the product design engineering business for them. Again, absolutely state-of-the-art, full system design, product design work took place. Again, I'm talking of very early 1990s. And this included designing entire network switches, which had what was called ATM to the desktop, asynchronous transfer mode. 155 Mbps delivered to your desktop for multimedia and conference users. Very, very leading edge at that time. And then there was a bunch of other very cool stuff. Designed the motherboards using the pre-Pentium chips from Intel. I remember going to the Intel fab in Santa Clara and holding the microprocessor in my hand, fresh off the fab. So, very, very wonderful stuff, actually.
Yeah, you were doing cutting edge stuff even before we were.
Oh, yeah. It was really, really leading edge, no kidding. And then in 1995, I was asked, along with a colleague, to create a new business for Wipro. What was happening was there was a massive turmoil taking place in the entire company at Wipro and other companies, wondering what's to be done, because 1991 we had liberalization. Overseas multinationals had come into India, and it was no longer becoming viable for a company like ours to keep investing in R&D based design, engineering, product manufacturing, selling kinds of activities, and therefore we had to morph and change and become a lab for hire. So R&D, product design services for the world became the new positioning. As part of that, there was a lot of rethinking going on in the company, saying all of this is great. How do we add more value to all of this? And one of the things was to look at it from a domain standpoint rather than a pure engineering or technology standpoint. So domain those days meant two big things, particularly because Bill Clinton was the president then in the US, and they were pushing this, what was then called digital commerce. It was just, the word had just been introduced, and there was massive healthcare reform. So the idea was to then create two verticals, one in digital commerce, the other in healthcare, and use Wipro's engineering, design, marketing, sales, infrastructure, etc., and capabilities to make end solutions possible. Right? That was the thinking. So we had Professor C.K. Prahlad was kind of advising Wipro on how to think about it and so on. So I was on the team that worked on the healthcare business. Knew nothing at all about healthcare, zero. I was never on the applications end of the house. I was on the system side of the house. I had no idea about what US healthcare was about. But it was a fantastic opportunity, great challenge, and jumped in, did a lot of work figuring out the entire ecosystem, the players, the dynamics, the economics, all of that. And then we created a plan that said that we're going to create a $50 million business in healthcare, and we have to now become a system integrator so that we are putting all the blocks together and deliver. And therefore, we had to create a new company, we had to rethink the way we did business, a whole host of things. So that was in 1995. Before that, Netscape had just been born in 94 and had just gotten listed, and the valley was on fire because everybody was looking at the World Wide Web. Nobody knew what it was, but it was just something fantastic. I remember downloading Mozilla and Netscape Navigator 1.0 and playing with it, and it was a different experience. We just didn't know what it was, right? So that was the phenomenal thing. So anyway, so that led to my interest in a lot of the newer things. I was always very keen and interested in doing new things. I've never done anything for more than 2 years in my life. Exciting, intellectually challenging, go where nobody else has gone kind of mindset. So did all of that. And then like I told you, the valley was on fire. I was attending a lot of these events and everything, and clearly the excitement was just uncontrollable. And then in '96, I was clearly thinking of moving on, from Wipro and to take advantage of this. Fortunately for me, a bunch of others at Wipro were also thinking like that. So 3 of us got together and said, let's do something. And that is how we started a company. And then we had a 4th person join us as a founder. So he had just come he was from Stanford, and he joined, so there were 4 of us. And we started a company. So we were probably, and I think I can say this with some authority, the first set of founders on a non-US immigrant visa, without a US educational background, without US company work experience, who founded a startup in Silicon Valley that was backed by a US Silicon Valley investor. Wow. This was in 1997, right? And then we did that company. It was a software company building personalization software. And that subsequently became a part of a internet business unit of Disney called InfoSeek. And I was always wanting to get back to India. Meanwhile, my son had been born in '97, and so we had him here in India. My mother passed away in '97. We was here, and then we went back and did all that because I was very keen to get back. I never applied for a green card, never did anything. So after about 7 years in the US, came back. I was wondering how to get the excitement of Silicon Valley back here in India. So I started a magazine. It was India's first magazine aimed at entrepreneurs. Wow. It was an e-magazine. It was on HTML text, would go out as email to people. And this was talking about what does it mean to be an entrepreneur, right? And then the different aspects of entrepreneurship. So there was a section called Gurukul. There was a role modeling, and we would interview people, and interview people not those who had become too big, not like say Azim Premji of Wipro and so on, but folks like you and I, and said, hey, we used to play cricket together. Now this person has gone and started a company, right? So why can't you do it? And that kind of thing. And then there was also a section on opportunities, jobs and banking and lawyers and accountants, and for the entrepreneurs who were there at that time. And in India at that time, you had to go and get a VSNL CD, okay, to get onto the internet, and that was a nightmare by itself. So those were the days. You had to dial up internet access and stuff. So anyway, so that's what happened. So started this magazine, and that was a chap called Venki joined me, Venki Hariharan, who had just come back from MIT after a fellowship in technology journalism. I met him at the IIIT Bangalore office, which was then in ITPL. And he was there. I met him. I was talking to Professor Sadagopan about what I want to do, and he overheard me, and he said, man, this is really exciting. So, and he was an adjunct faculty there. So he gave up his job, joined, and both of us started the magazine. Okay, and this ran for about 3 months. Meanwhile, what happened was Arun Shourie was the disinvestment minister and IT minister of India at that time. And MIT Media Labs Asia was coming to India. So they reached out to the alums to see if they could join. And naturally, they reached out to Venki, given his background in journalism and technology and all of it, and said, hey, look, we want somebody to work with government and do the government end of the house. So can you join? So he said, man, this is really exciting. I got to go. We didn't have a revenue model. There was no business model. We were just two random dudes doing this. So we did that. And so he went off to join that. And I was wondering, I've always wanted to do a fund, because when you give people information about what to do, how to do, educate them, etc., next logical thing is, look, I'm going to build a business. Where do I get money from, right? And so I was thinking of having a small angel fund to do it. Then the investor at the VC fund, Draper, at that time, who had funded us, was Kiran Nadkarni, highly experienced man. He was earlier the president of TDICI, which is now called ICICI Ventures. So he reached out and said, hey, what would we do us doing a fund? I said, fantastic. I was doing the exact same thing. So, we got together. A third person, Ganpati, joined us, who now runs the Tamil Nadu investment fund. So we three of us got together and started Jump Startup. This was our first fund. Nobody had gone and done this. Earlier, there were two funds around. One was TDICI, which was kind of backed by the government. There was Gujarat Venture Capital Fund, which was backed by the government again. And Chris Capital had just started. That was in '99. And in 2000, we went on the road. We were, again, the first, let's say, non-US educated US company work folks, made in India types, went out to put together a fund for early stage technology investing in 2000. So we raised $45 million to invest in India. Along the way, we realized that India was not yet right for doing the kinds of deals we wanted to do. So we sort of, after about a year or so, we said, well, let's make it a US-India fund. Invest in US and in India. But invest only in US companies that had an India angle to it, either a development center or India as a market or from India to the world, that kind of thing. And you could be legally domiciled in the US, but that was not of consequence. So did that. So that was a very, very exciting, super learning experience. So after the fund, again, 2006, 2007, wondering, let's do a second fund. Meanwhile, my partners had moved on, had become entrepreneurs, right? So we're wondering what to do, and the timing was not quite right yet for doing a technology-oriented early-stage fund in India. So 2006, 2007, wondering what to do, and I had this epiphany. I was reading this magazine which had an ad in it from Emirates Airlines. The ad said, "When was the last time you did something for the first time?" And that kept me thinking. I was wondering about my own life and said, I've always done things that are different. I've done things that others had not ventured out to do. I've had some fantastic experiences and a lot of great stories. And so, in my own life, what is it I want to do now in my next phase? And so I said, it took me about 8-9 months of thinking to do that. And I said, look, everything around ideation, creation, entrepreneurship, innovation really gets my juice going. Hanging out with young, smart people, doing exciting things, that is fun. So I said, therefore, how do I construct something around it? So then I said, look, I also want to make a big difference. I came back to India, started the magazine, was essentially to make a difference. In my own way, my goal was, in my lifetime, can I be directly or indirectly responsible for creating 100,000 jobs in India in my lifetime? So let's say I have a lifetime of 45, 50 years of, as a working lifespan. Can I help enable, create 100,000 jobs, right? That was the kind of meta objective, but clearly with no game plan behind it. It was a statement of desire.
That's a mission. Huh?
So it was a mission, that's right. So I did that. So after the fund, I was wondering, and these ideas were all permeating through my brain. And then I said, okay, great, now I got it. So what should I want to do? So it's got to be around this ideation, entrepreneurship area. But there are multiple spokes that branch out from this core. And so I got into teaching. I got into lecturing. I got into writing. I got into mentoring. I got into angel investing. I got associated with funds. I got involved with government on a host of things, but all around this idea, right? Then with organizations like TIE and NASCOM and all those guys. Everybody who was there and willing to have me be a part of their organization, I was part of, all right? And that is how I was involved in multiple things. All, like I said, around ideation, entrepreneurship, creation, etc., etc. So I did all of that. Then, several funds, approached me, many US funds in 2006, 2007 onwards. 2013 was when, Silicon Valley VCs actually became a very big presence in India. So around 2006, 2007, they had all come, and they were all, talking to people, trying to understand the lay of the land. And, I'd had many conversations with several of those funds at that time. But, I wanted to be independent, and I wanted to be able to do things because I wanted to do it, not because I have to do it. I also wanted freedom of my decision making and freedom to manage my time. And the third is I wanted to meet all kinds of people so that it would help me, it would possibly help them, those who I met, to be able to help them grow and develop, right? That was the whole thing. In my entire life, money was never my motivator, never. I've never done anything in my life for money. Money, I found, has become a byproduct of what I do, okay? So I've never ever gone for money in and as of itself. As it says, right, don't die rich, live rich. And so that was the whole point, right? So go through that whole set of experiences. So I did all kinds of things that I had not done. So that was how, I kind of made progress in everything that I did. So then as you know, when you said, yes, we met 10 odd years back. So, TRI was one of the places that I used to be very deeply involved with back in the day.
You were super active.
Now,
You were
doing all,
the product was
do all of those things. And then I, met Funny there. Fanindra Sama was the founder. And, so I got involved with those guys. And then I was involved with many other startups and funds and everything. So one thing led to the other. I found it was a very exciting thing. And and building, creating, making mistakes, having disagreements, learning, was all part of the process. I was also learning. The folks on the other side were also learning. So it was almost a co-creation and co-evolution of both of ourselves, right, during that period. So today, when I look back and I see myself, I can see myself doing this for the rest of my life. And, it's great, you meet a lot of smart people doing exciting things. And I learn about myself, I learn about others, I learn about, what are the motivators of people in life, what are the different mental models that upset people, that they use as frames of reference, and so on, right? So that's the kind of the intellectualization of this, the abstraction of all of it. And so that's kind of my journey in kind of brief.
Amazing. So I looked at your LinkedIn profile after a long time, and I saw so many things. You are an advisor for a lot of funds like Idea Spring, India, and there is Women Entrepreneurship, CWE, and you're also a board member in multiple public companies like Quest Corp, Allsec, and then you are part of so many startups as a mentor and stuff like that. I tried doing multiple things like a couple of years back, and I failed miserably. How do you do that, Sanjay?
By exactly what you said, by feeling miserably.
Okay.
So you do a lot of things, and I think now, fortunately, I'm at a stage where I don't have to deep dive too much into anything. So it gives me the luxury of stepping back and saying things, and without having to do all the grunt work or the hard work required, right? So that is clearly an advantage, right? So nevertheless, at least I get involved to the point where I understand what the issues are. And therefore, what happens is when you're involved with many things, one of the great learnings in life is the idea of transplantation. When you see something in domain A or company A or in person A, how do you abstract those learnings, those models, and apply it somewhere else, right? The pattern match that you can do. And that's a great ability to have. And it comes by observing, it comes from training yourself, it comes by making mistakes. But you start developing this intuitive feel of what this pattern is. And that gives you the great ability to very quickly understand something. You don't need to understand the bits and bytes, but you understand the model, you understand what drives the person, the business, and the activities, right? And that gives you a great advantage to be able to do things. Doesn't mean you're right all the time, but it gives you the feeling that you have understood, that you understand what's going on. But to really deeply understand, you obviously have to go deep, right? So, for example, you're running this Ofofo and this podcast and all of that. Now you understand the technical aspects of it, what it takes to bring a podcast to life. You understand what it means now to do the recording, the post-production, and to push it out, and to ensure that it becomes something that is of interest to your listeners, etc., etc., right? Now, I can't do all of it, but I know what is required to make it successful. And therefore, by hanging out with smart people like yourselves, I become smart, right? So that is my philosophy.
Yeah. No, you are correct. I failed doing multiple things because I was hands-on in most of the things. I was
That's
going
right.
deeper and deeper in each of the initiatives.
That's right.
I was like too much, right?
Yeah.
So, fair enough.
Yeah.
You're also championing the cultural entrepreneurship,
Yes.
right? It's
Yes.
not something that is heard by a lot of entrepreneurs like me. We heard social entrepreneurship, we
Yeah.
heard impact entrepreneurship,
right.
and various types of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about cultural entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
What it is, what kind of startups,
Sure.
and what kind of impact?
True.
That would be helpful.
Yeah. See, the word culture and entrepreneurship have never been juxtaposed in India, right? They were kind of seen as two opposing forces. our greatest asset as a country is our cultural heritage, 5,000 years or whatever number of years old. And it is manifested in everything that we see around us, in our food and beverages, in our health, wellness, beauty treatments, whether it's Ayurveda, whether it is yoga, whether it's pranayama, meditation, all of it. Or you take our phenomenal handlooms, where we are the world's largest producer of handmade textiles. It can be used for home decor and furnishings. You take fashion and accessories, right? All the fantastic embroidery work that goes on, right? Designers from around the world come here and get clothes made because of the phenomenal capability and skills that we have. And of course, we are blessed with fantastic natural beauty in this country. So tourism, right? So these are the 5 areas that we chose. And why did we choose culture? Our greatest asset is culture. And we are not monetizing it, we are not using it for our own benefit. You go around the world, every country has created assets that is of economic value that is based on their culture.
True.
Right? Whether it is a McDonald's, whether it is a Levi's jeans, it has this American pioneering spirit embedded in it. You take French wines, Italian design, okay, Japanese attention to detail, precision work, Swiss engineering, and so on. So those are their cultural assets, and what they have done with it is quite phenomenal. So why is that important? Because through culture, you are able to build the brand of a country. You are able to deliver what is called soft power. And most importantly, you are able to generate livelihoods and generate wealth for tens, if not hundreds of millions of our people who depend on all of these artisanship, craftsmanship, etc. to make a living. If a craftsperson or an artisan does not make money from their skills, they are going to stop it. Their next generation will no longer do it.
Yeah, that
So-
happened with me exactly. My parents and the grandparents used to basically do the saris, like we used to call it maggam, like you
Maggam.
see those
Yeah.
maggam machines.
Yes.
Like they are experts in it. Like
Yes.
one of my grandfathers used to pack a sari in a small
Yeah.
pouch like this,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And my father never did that.
Yes.
And I never can imagine seeing
Doing
that
it,
as
yes,
well.
absolutely. And that's the story across the country. I mean, our fantastic muslin cloth, right, was so fine. And the Ponduri Khadi dhotis in Andhra, or the Ilkal saris in Karnataka, or Kanjivaram, wherever. There is, across this country, there is phenomenal heritage and talent and skills and knowledge available. The question is, how do you put it together? So our entire focus as a country in the last 7 decades has been on preservation and protection of these assets. We never thought about it from the standpoint of promotion and prosperity, right? And therefore, how do you create an economic vehicle run by not middlemen, but by entrepreneurs who understand design, who understand intellectual property, who understand technology, who understand markets, who understand users, who understand materials, right? All these, and these people come together and become the interface between the market, which is the demand side, and the creators, which is the supply side. So you need this intelligent interface. This interface is the cultural entrepreneur, right? How do you do this? For example, the question you should ask is, how come in all of India there is one big brand called Fab India? Why don't we have 50 Fab Indias? Why don't we have 50 Amuls? You have conscious consumers who are concerned about sustainability, eco-friendliness, etc. All our products are naturally eco-friendly, right? Then people are valuing design, people are valuing authenticity, people want to have products that belong to them. When we started NICE, one of the interesting things was a Google Trends report of, I think, August or September 2020. One of the trends they identified then was proud to be desi, was a trend across urban, rural, rich, poor, men, women, right? Which means that people wanted a very authentic experience. And that is what, and hence NICE was born, to enable the creation of entrepreneurs who will be the intelligent, smart interface between the demand side for cultural goods and the creators and the supply side. So create an ecosystem. And why that? Because our experience has come from the IT and tech world, which is India's greatest business today that is globally recognized and respected is IT. 250 odd billion dollars is what it generates for the country, several million jobs. So the models that have worked there, which is organizations like TIE or NASCOM and others, who have created all of these vehicles for people to come meet. So we do the same things. We do education, we do mentoring, we enable networking, we enable access to funding, partnerships. We wrote India's first policy brief on catalyzing cultural entrepreneurship. We held India's first roundtable on cultural entrepreneurship at Flame University. Partnered with governments, for example, with TSIC in Telangana, to have the first state cultural entrepreneurship day, have chapters in Hyderabad and in Bangalore. We are less than 3 years old, and we find that there is so much of interest, so much of passion, and so much of momentum that people want to be part of this effort and lend their shoulders to the wheel. This is something where everybody has to come together, because without culture, what are you left with? Nothing. You can't be a carbon copy or a pale imitation of somebody sitting in Europe or the US or China or wherever else. You have to be your own, and only then are you respected, right? And that is the whole effort, that it's a long journey, we understand that, to be able to build through economic means, ensure that Indian cultural assets are crafted into branded, successful businesses that ultimately create jobs, wealth, and brand India.
When I was studying in IIM Ahmedabad, there was this professor called Anil Gupta.
Yes.
He used to take us all to variety of places like
National Innovation Foundation, Honeybee Network.
So, but that time we thought that is more to do with the social entrepreneurship. Right now that you talk about it, I can relate it back on how the gap was. The gap was predominantly enabling these entrepreneurs to, put some effort there and create that ecosystem. Right. It has always been, like you said, preserving the art and we see that as an art. We don't see that as a
business. That's right.
So that's where I think there is a big difference between capitalistic mindset and the art mindset.
For example, you go to any museum abroad. What's the first thing you see? You'll see T-shirts, you'll see coffee mugs, you'll see baseball caps, right? Why is that there? They want to popularize that brand of that museum. They want to generate revenue, etc., etc., etc. Right? The private sector is deeply embedded with all of these activities, right? But we don't see that here because we don't think of it as a business, right? And we think of business as a bad word. But unless you generate profits in an ethical, legal manner, you are not going to have a surplus that can help sustain the creators' lives, right? That's the whole issue.
So as Indians, we gift a lot of people a lot of things when we go to their homes for the first time or when they come to our home for the first time, right? I have an Israeli friend, and I've given a lot of gifts to a lot of people. I have seen that priceless expression when I gifted him the kurta and pajama from Fab India.
Yeah.
It's so when you can achieve that feelings on a person's face, I think you can definitely come.
No doubt. And Mohan, just look at it, look around you, right? Yoga is almost $100 billion global industry. We don't have a single Indian yoga brand. We will pay $7 to Starbucks to have turmeric latte. But our haldi doodh, we don't give any value. Diwali is going to come, we are happy distributing chocolates, Ferrero Rocher chocolates to everybody. But what about our sweets, right? Unless we build our sweet industry, our entrepreneurs who are building branded, high quality, well packaged, innovatively, let's say, created sweets, why will somebody go and buy it, right? So that is where the focus must be. We have done a lot of capacity building. Now we have to create the market side.
So would companies like Patanjali, etc., would be considered as a cultural?
Absolutely. Yes, yes, of course, of course, of course. And there are lots and lots. So our view is that this is not a unicorn business. This is a business where you'll have profitable branded businesses at a city level, state level, regional level, national level, and international level. So this is a 5-tiered approach. And it's the Darwinian process that will have the top people get to the international stage. But if you're running, let's say, 2 stores in your city, a profitable branded business, you're great. For example, in Bangalore, there is a company called Adukale.
Okay.
So they make South Indian savories, traditional savories, like what is called the kodbade, the chakli, and things like that. It is branded super high quality and available online as well as through stores.
Adukole.
Adukale.
Okay.
I think that's the spelling. Adukale. It is a Sanketi word for kitchen. Okay. Now that's very, very popular and is expanding in the city, right? Raised angel funds. Right now, that is a cultural business. Okay, so we want, and there are any number of examples. There's no shortage. The point being, we have to start thinking of it as a business. That's the number one point, right? Then there are companies like Ayurvedam that is using modern technology, sensor technology, etc., and using Ayurvedic principles to essentially give you information about your health, right? So the point is, you have to marry the modern and the contemporary with all the capabilities and knowledge of the cultural past.
I think we are at a junction where people know the value of the culture but are struggling to relate to it.
That's right. So that's the job of the entrepreneur, to be that intelligent interface. For example, you can't have the same design running for 100 years. You have to change the design, change the colors, change the material, how you reimagine it. That is where the designer plays a phenomenal role. But the designer then has to think in business terms, right? So it's coming together of a lot of different capabilities and skills to make it happen. You can't just say, I know Python, right? It's like saying, I know embroidery. So what? From Python, you now use it to create, let's say, an app. From the app, you create a solution. That solution then becomes part of a larger offering to a customer, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in financial services, whatever, right? So customer is buying a solution. Customer is not buying Python code. You understand? And that journey is what now needs to happen. How do I take the phenomenal skills of the artisan, which is the programming skill equivalent in Python? It used to be a body shop business where I would give you $20 an hour and you would write code for me. I'll now give you $20, please do the embroidery for me. To the design of the app, well, let's say it's a payroll application, to doing the customer needs identification and doing the design and the programming yourself, to actually now going there and selling a product for payroll. You understand? That is the transition from embroidery to the design of the kurta, to now doing design and embroidery and branding that kurta, and then selling it to somebody under that brand, under different colors, different materials, different designs, etc., under your brand. That full circle is what the entrepreneurship enables.
So if an entrepreneur is doing something that is roots in the culture, how would NiceOrg help them? Like, I know that there is mentorship, there is ecosystem, there is all these things.
Right.
How do they find you and what do they get by being part of the community?
Right. It's exactly like how in the early days entrepreneurs would gravitate to organizations like a NASCOM or a TIE. Right? First is the important piece, which is the becoming educated and aware of what does it mean to build a business. A lot of people, I would say, argue that almost all people don't know what it takes to build the business. So you hang out with your peers, you hang out with people who've been there, done that, or who have made more progress than you have, So you learn from them, right? Then you also have collaborative opportunities, right? You partner with others, because that's a very important element of building something. Obviously, there is mentorship and very involved exercises. Every entrepreneur says the number one problem they have is accessing money, when it is really not the number one problem. The number one problem is thinking about your business as a business, and therefore putting all the other blocks together to make it a business. Money follows that, the vision, the plan, the model, and who your customers are, etc., right? Understanding that helps you attract capital. So that's like a big thing. Then there are partnerships, and as part of the entire nice network, you get access to that. For example, whether it is working with, say, an IICD, which is the Indian Institute of Craft and Design, or with INTAC, or with CIIE and NSR Cell and TIE and so on. So you get access to a larger network, you get access to education awareness, you get access to mentoring, you have an opportunity to raise money. So all of those are the, let's say, almost immediate benefits, meaning short-term benefits. The question is, as being part of this larger group, there is a larger community of people that you can reach out to and explore partnerships with them. That's another massive benefit that can be offered. So typically it's like any other group. Like, why would you join a Rotary Club? Why would you join TIE? It's the exact same answer. So it is non-transactional. It's not like I joined today and tomorrow I go away with 50 lakhs as funding, right? So those who come with that mindset will be disappointed. That's transactional. But those who say, look, we are all part of something that is larger than us, I will win when this ecosystem develops. Any one entity can't do this. Okay? So like the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. This is an example of that.
No, its community approaches take a lot of time. We have been trying to build a community too.
Right.
And NASSCOM took more than 7 years to just take off, right, properly.
NASSCOM was founded in 1987.
Yeah. Just to get the name out, it took them 7 years.
TIE today is about 31 years old. Right? It takes that effort, it takes that time. Right? We all see only the fruits of all that effort. But if you go back to the early days, you have to knock on a lot of doors, you have to have a lot of doors shut in your face, and all kinds of things happen. But, as long as you are driven by the belief that what we are doing is so much larger. I'll also take a moment and talk to you about iSpirit, which is a volunteer organization I'm a member of. It is almost entirely run by volunteers, about 150 or thereabouts, right? And see the accomplishments of that group, what we now refer to as digital public goods, right? Everything, but all the iSpirit volunteers at one time or the other have been involved with the Aadhaar, UPI, now with health, then drones, then with logistics, telecom, the telecom stack, and you name it. There's the DigiLocker, everything. So there have been people who've been part of that. Now, right, and the operating principle there is no greed, no glory. You're doing it for a cause that is larger than yours, right? And when all of it happens, we also benefit, right? That's the approach, which is what is otherwise called as a pay-forward approach. So that's the approach even at NICE. So there is Aadhaar started in 2009, right? 14 years have gone by. We didn't realize it, but Aadhaar obviously is a phenomenal success. It's like a template for how a public-private partnership should work, how do you work across enormous challenges, phenomenal diversity, and to deliver something like this at the lowest cost per ID anywhere in the world. So that clearly, after a lot of resistance, a lot of naysayers, it succeeded and way beyond anyone's expectations. And then the idea was that, and obviously, people, industry leaders and thinkers like Nandan Nilekani led it. A lot of top quality people were involved with it, Pramod Verma and others, Sanjay Jain and others who were part of it, who made it happen on the ground up. Now, a lot of countries were wanting to deploy identity solutions. Why? Because UN SDG 16.9 says legal identity is mandatory for countries if they have to progress on socio-economic parameters. If you don't know who is in your country, how do you deliver any benefit to that person? You have to be able to uniquely identify this person. On one element, to target the right kinds of incentives, benefits and welfare schemes. Second is to ensure that there is no fraud happening. Third is to get the informal sector into the formal sector, and so on. So multiple socio-economic benefits. And that was many countries approached. And we said, how does one do this? And therefore, at iSpirit, we had this conversation with several people, and the idea of an open source identity platform emerged. So in 2018, it's now 5 years since that effort began, is to create this open source effort. So that's called MOSIP, Modular Open Source Identity Platform. You can look up mosip.io to learn more about it. Today, it's the world's most successful digital public goods deployment, with 84 million IDs issued, 10 plus countries in different stages of deployment, 70 plus ecosystem partners around the world, right? And people now can access the code. It's up on GitHub. And so you make it technology agnostic, vendor agnostic, country agnostic. Because countries are concerned that I'm building my ID system based on what you're giving me. Am I giving away my sovereignty? Right, which is a very, very valid concern. So we said, therefore, it is country agnostic, company agnostic, technology agnostic, right? You have the code, do what you want with it, right? And therefore, we put an ecosystem around. So you select members who are certified by MOSIP, and you figure out how you want to build your end solution for your people, and you are in charge. It'll run off your data centers, it'll run off your local partners or whoever you have chosen, and to build solutions that you want to build, whether it's in financial inclusion, it's in health, it is in tracking your population, whatever the case may be. That obviously the country decides.
Wow. So did we really try to look at the great learnings from UID and open source?
100%. It is inspired from the Aadhaar experience. Wonderful.
Thank you
Hey,
so
thank
much.
you so much. Thanks for having me.
Sanjay. Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks.